Hey, welcome back everyone. Rob here from Ram Studio Comics. So in this one I'm drawing Vecna from Stranger Things Season 4. Absolutely love that season. It's actually my favorite out of all of them. I know that a lot of people prefer Season 1 and 2, but I don't know, something about Season 4 and the way they brought the whole story together was very compelling and well done, and yeah, just, love that series altogether, that title. I absolutely love this character. I thought he was vicious and the embodiment of evil. So I was like, I gotta do one of them. And instead of drawing them in a traditional way, I went with just straight, like digital ink or whatever, an inked line. And so generally I draw, soft erase, redraw. And so I talked about in my last video how like sometimes I like to mix it up and do things differently. This is one of those approaches for me. So by just inking and erasing with a solid line, so a solid line down, solid line erased, because it's not like traditional inking, so I feel weird saying that, but hopefully you get what I mean. It's just a solid line and then erasing back, and doing that in a way where I'm not soft erasing and building up clean lines. I'm just sculpting the existing lines. So here I add in a little bit of grayscale underneath, just to help me feel out the volumes and the direction that I want to take with this. And that's it. And one of the neat things about working in this way is like you start to leave more texture in place. So it's kind of like the way that I would paint. So when I paint, I throw in all sorts of different overlaying textures, and then I just paint over top of that and kind of pull from it. It gives you lots of ideas. You build up those layers of texture. Well, the same thing kind of applies here. That's really what ultimately led me to start working in this way occasionally. And I usually do it for characters that, again, have abundant amounts of detail where I can just let lots of imperfections fly. It doesn't matter. It kind of adds to the flavor in a sense. But I'd love to be able to incorporate this even into cleaner works of art. I just have to figure out how to do it. But you have to edit a bit differently than, again, the typical soft erase redraw method. It's just like erasing back things. But what I found that's really neat about this, again, is when you overlay lots of little details, stippling, cross-hatching, scribbles, and just kind of build up upon it, you will start to pick apart and see different shapes. It's almost like a little bit of Where's Waldo, I guess. I don't know how else to explain it to you, but you start to see those shapes come together. Your imagination starts to kick in, and you just erase and redevelop things with darker lines. But yeah, it's actually a really fun way to work. And what I find that really helps me here, and this is the thing that I kind of touched on in the previous video, was when you're facing like a little bit of art block, these types of things can really help you spawn creative ideas. And so even that grayscale that you see me do before I start drawing the clock, and I was going to put in those creatures flying in the back, but I felt it already kind of looked like Spawn. I didn't want to take that too far, so I ended up doing away with that idea. But by putting in that little bit of those gray lines, like with a big paintbrush, basically is what I'm using there. It's a painterly style brush. It gives me just a base idea to work from, and all of a sudden drawing that clock was much easier. Now I end up getting rid of that as well because I should have pulled reference before I started. And like a dummy, I didn't. It's not the right clock, so I put all this work into the clock, and not a lot, but I dinked around with it for a bit, and then I pull reference, and I'm like, whoa. Wow, my memory did not serve me there. The clock is totally different. So I didn't feel like redrawing. I basically got rid of the background. I thought, well, I kind of like just the attention to be on the character. But again, had I pulled reference first, I probably would have kept the work and kept moving in that direction I was heading. So yeah, I absolutely love this way of working. I've done this on a few pieces now. Again, it does work with characters that are a lot more gritty and like a Swamp Thing or, Spawn or this guy, or I did want a Violator in the same way. Yeah, but there's methods I'm sure you can employ to use the same technique and approach to, drawing characters that have a little bit cleaner finish. But what I will say is that mainly it's about experiencing a different way of jumping in and doing your thing. Even though I'm using the app Procreate and working off the iPad Pro, it's about challenging yourself to say, you know what, I'm gonna just try a different approach and break out of the norm for a bit. And I always feel like that helps me to get back in that creative zone a bit better and move through any of those hindrances that I face when I go to, I have an image in my head and I go to put it down. I'm like, I'm not getting what I wanted or what I expected. I don't know. Usually it kind of helps me to just kind of start throwing things on the canvas. And what I think ultimately gave me the idea to do it is I used to digitally paint a lot more, and I need to get back to that. But again, it's layering all those textures. In fact, I've seen some really great videos on YouTube for photo bashing, and I think that's so neat. Like, they just throw all these different photos, things that have nothing to do with what they're working on, but they somehow pull bits and pieces out of it and make something cool. And again, that's really my thought process when I'm doing something like this. And in fact, my next goal to move forward with these types of works is to introduce more various texture brushes, all with a basic solid ink line, but I have cross-hatching brushes, stippling brushes. I'm going to make different ones that I think just have some cool patterns, and maybe even mix in ones that are a bit more abstract, but then through the process of developing it, you could still work it into something that, gives you the end result you're after. So I'll show you more of those videos as I produce stuff like that, obviously. So here I'm still dinking with the clock. Like, I still want to give up. Maybe if I just keep reworking it and adding a little more, and then I end up even trying to edit because basically the clock in the series, it's got that bigger head on it. But yeah, again, I gotta say that this particular series, in season 4, has even also really helped invigorate my imagination. It was like just a nice creative spark that I needed. So sometimes stories do that for me, and I think this one really did. I don't know if it's because I was a kid in the 80s, or it reminds me of Goonies, or any number of factors. All I could say is if you haven't checked it out, you might want to. It's pretty good. It's definitely one of my favorite shows out there. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and let me know what you think, as well as what you'd like to see in the future. I'll get that on the channel. As always, keep drawing, keep having fun, and bye for now.